Started.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Week on Rewind. But instead of a Saturday, it's become a Sunday edition because we had to postpone it by a day because of the ZP election, and we wanted you to hear from us our analysis about the ZP election and a lot of issues that we will be discussing with you watching. So, Avinash, as usual, our research expert, he's going to introduce the topics that we'll be covering today. So over to you, Avinash.
So today we'll talk about the Zilla Panchayat election. Uh, Goa had gone into Zilla Panchayat into polling yesterday, and the
Hmm.
turnout. This is only about the turnout of the voting and the role of the election, the State Election Commission, uh, with respect to how
Hmm.
they handled this entire election. And we want to discuss it because we feel that Goa has been cheated in a way. Uh, Zilla elections are very crucial, and unfortunately, it's given a step early treatment. And that is why we need to understand what went wrong. As most of you know, the
Hmm.
first topic of the day, which we'll be discussing, is the voter turnout. The voter turnout has been quite low. In fact, if I just open the statistics, so yeah,
It's in the region of 50s, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, so it's 58%. Um, just add this to my screen, yes. So the voter turnout for Zilla Panchayat election in North Goa has been 58%, and in South Goa
Hmm.
it has been 56%. Sorry, in fifty-five
Okay.
percent. And
Hmm.
the uh, what if you see the discrepancies between the east and the west, that is the western zone and the eastern zone, you'll see that the eastern areas, the rural areas, have had a quite a high voter turnout. Now if you look at in the north, Latambarse has 76%. Maye, Palle,
Hmm.
Honda, these all in Satari, they had a 70% and above. uh, Arambol, Morji, this is the northern end. They're still not as urban as we can call it. They're not urban villages. But as we come closer
Hmm.
to the urban villages like Santa Cruz, 53%. Then we have Anjuna, Kalangut, 52%. Aldona,
Hmm.
42%. Aldona, I think, is one of the most highly educated and uh, a lot of upper class citizens live in that. Uh, but the
Hmm.
but the turnout is abysmal, and if you go south, it's even more shocking. So we have
Yeah.
uh, Navini, of course, basically the one of the candidates passed away, so there was no elections held. But right from Korthali and Kurstori, then Dovoli, these all, well, they're 50%. I mean, what were the rest of the 50% of voters doing? Why weren't they
Hmm.
convinced, or why weren't they motivated enough to come out and vote?
Hmm.
And the worst,
Yeah.
Veli. Veli has been, and Veli is quite a dense village. Uh,
Hmm.
it's quite an active, politically active village, but it had only 38% turnout. And the worst is Raya, another village. If you see the Gram Sabhas in Raya, it's pretty vocal, it's pretty active. But yet they
Hmm.
didn't feel the need to come out and vote. And it's 37%. And Raya is interesting because one of the candidate, the leading candidate, Dominic Gaunkar, his wife was the
Hmm.
ZP earlier. It was a reserve ward, and this time he contested. And it's surprising that people have not come out to vote. Uh, so the like in, for example, in Benauli, 41%. Last
Hmm.
time it was around 48, 47 or 48%. So there has been a decrease in the number of voters in these areas, which are like hotspots, political hotspots of South Goa. Now,
Hmm.
why were why was why did this happen? So one of the interesting feedback that we got. Number one, the elections were held on Saturday. A lot of things go wrong because of this. First of all, although the government declared it as a holiday, a lot of industries, a lot of small businesses and medium businesses, they were still open. So people were not able to vote because of that. A lot of daily wage labor were not able to vote. Why didn't the Goa State Election Commission have this election on a Sunday? If you ask a lot of people, they say that, the ruling party does not want election on Sunday because the turnout of the Catholic community who go to vote and come out, it's pretty high because they just attend mass and then they come out to vote. So that is one argument which can be considered. But then the other two are: is the ZP election, is the ZIlla Panchayat, does it play a role in Goa's politics, and do people consider it powerful enough to sacrifice their time to come out and vote? Do they consider it effective enough? And obviously the answer is no, because the past ZIlla members and the past government also did not give it enough of powers. There was no devolution of powers. There were no funds available for them. Even if they're given funds, the process of executing any projects would take so long that it would just be a drag. And I have attended some of the ZIlla Panchayat meetings where some of the Panch members would raise issues affecting their constituencies. For example, I remember I think it was Bori, that there was some hill cutting or something going on, and the member of that the constituency raised the issue, but somehow some of the other members were just not interested. It was just like a time pass for them, and maybe they thought that, okay, there's no power with the panchayats to do anything, so that's why with the ZIlla Panchayat, that's why it kind of degraded, and it has now become, the ZIlla Panchayat election has only become a referendum on the current ruling government, or it's become a matter of pride for the current or the sitting MLA or the current ruling government, as a show of strength, to show that, look, we still have support of the people even halfway through the term of the MLAs. So that is one of the things. People have kind of been disillusioned with it, and of course the third most obvious thing is that candidates themselves have not been inspiring, because if a candidate stands for something that you value, you tend to come out and vote. So that could be a reason. It could be a combination of all three. But then, who is responsible for this, anyways? So, do you agree? I mean, with what did you hear being on the ground? Because you were in Panjim yesterday, and.
So the thing is, Avinash, on the ground, what happens in terms of local self-governance, and I would like to share this with our viewers as well. And it's an observation that I've made about the panchayats and even ZPs. They've actually been reduced to becoming like honorariums, titular positions with not actual vested powers to make any decisions of real consequence. So that is something which affects the voter turnout in a very big way, and which we've seen yesterday across Goa in terms of in North Goa and South Goa. So in effect, what has happened over the years is, because the MLAs have been usurping power from the local bodies like the panchayats and ZPs, what has happened is that these punch members, the sarpanch, the ZPs have been reduced to becoming the errand boys and so to say electioneering agents of the local MLA, and that is the I would say that is the biggest sadness that we see specifically in Goa. I don't know about the rest of the country, but this is a very peculiar thing that I have noticed in Goa. And as you were mentioning also, that they're treating it like a reinforcement of the mandate that a MLA received. It's not about that. According according to the constitution and how governance was envisioned while it was being planned, it was all about running parallel systems which would be checks and balances to each other. So we have the panchayat, the 73rd and 74th amendment was for that effect alone, that there should not be too much concentration of power by the state legislature, and that the real voices of the people from the ground up is heard. So I've taken a bit of time to explain this, but this is what is happened in Goa, what I'm observing, and that's why I guess finally people do not have that faith in the system, and that hence they do not feel it necessary to turn out and vote, and they would actually come out and rather vote for MLAs.
Yeah, exactly the way you said, because the duties and the responsibilities and the powers of the Zilla are so nuanced. It's so vast that the MLAs, I mean the government does not want to devolve the powers, and the candidates themselves have not been able or have not articulated what is their duties, what they can do for the people, which is why there's less interest of people who come out to vote. So if this
Absolutely.
explanation that you're giving would have been given
Yes.
to every door to door, where either the candidate or the election commission would have done that, then
Absolutely.
I think people would have come out. But again, this is an absolute failure, and blame of the number one blame that has to go is on the state election commission. The state
Yes.
election commissioner has to resign. The election commission of India spends a lot of money on marketing, on advertising, on awareness during the
Yes.
central and the state elections. But why hasn't the state election commission gone with approached this election with a similar strategy, with a similar energy and enthusiasm? And we know the reason. It's quite simple. It's that the state government itself does not want people to take any interest in the Zilla elections, because there is a difference. There is a strong division of powers between the state legislature and the Zilla Panchayat. The state legislature has to look into the laws, making the laws, setting the budget for the whole state, but the development work and the specific implementation of those projects and the schemes lie best with the district panchayat. So, for example,
Absolutely.
a couple of years back, when the Manohar Parrikar was the CM, there was this issue of a road from Kepe to from Margaon to Kepe, which goes it goes through 4 constituencies. From Margaon constituency, then it is Veli, then it is Kunkoli, and then it is Kepe. Now the problem is, because it's a one single stretch of road, you'll see one section tarred, another section not tarred, another section would be tarred. So like that, it was a very haphazard planning. And then leader of opposition Babu Kavlikar stood up and said that they have to look into this, because it is like the development since it is in 4 constituencies and the PWD engineers come under work on the instructions of the MLAs. So there is so it's the development is not comprehensive. Like, there's no one tender for the entire road. It is like 4 separate tenders, and depending on which MLA is in power, that section of road is constructed. So same thing. So how to solve that? If it was under the district, then the district would decide, and the district would decide what development works have to take place, irrespective of which MLA's constituency to go through. So then there would not be that thing. Okay, if I'm in power, my constituency is going to get developed, the other constituency is not going to get developed. So that's what is happening right now. And this is something that
I would like to make 2 points here.
Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. The first point that I wanted to make, which is in continuation to what I was explaining earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if we asked the candidates, all of the candidates who stood for ZP election, and out of that, at least 90% of them would not know the actual powers that a ZP has while functioning, which is the stark reality of what's happening on the ground. Secondly, as I was talking about the powers of the ZP, a lot of the people do not know things like if you're making a project, if there's a construction project, when it goes to the TCP department, a ZP also has to sign off on it. Various schemes by the government, something like Ladli Lakshmi, one of the more the very well-known schemes of this government. Schemes like that come under the purview of the ZP, of the panchayat. But what happens in reality is that for every single thing you have to run to the MLA. So this is, nothing but MLAs wanting to become very relevant in areas where they're not supposed to be. That's not under their purview. So, as I said, this is usurpation of power and not letting things work according to how it's been ordained in the constitution. So, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, and that is why a lot of schemes of the government itself are not, like how you said, are not being implemented. If you take the issue of for example, stray dog vaccination scheme, it's a state government scheme that is implemented through the panchayats. Now, none of the panchayats are taking interest because none of the panchayats have, say, place to set up this to set up a shelter for the dogs. It's for 2 years, and the sterilization is done over that period of all the local dogs. But if 2-3 villages come together, then they can share these resources. Same thing with garbage. Same thing with other like Goa ZIlla or something. And because the MLAs the MLAs have to handle so many villages, and many of the villages in one MLA's constituency is connected to a village in another MLA's constituency. So then those two villages cannot work together because if there's a conflict among the MLAs. So all these things, to resolve all these things, that's the reason why they made a district panchayat or Zilla Panchayat, and it was supposed to be a body, so which would work together. Because the MLAs, as you said, do not want to hand over the powers to the Zilla because they want to remain relevant. The district, the panchayat, is lagging behind. And why do they want to remain relevant? Because a lot of MLAs, many of the MLAs, don't speak much in the house. So they don't propose private members' bill. They don't propose amendments to that. Even when bills are proposed by the government, there's hardly any debate. There is those actual duties of the MLAs they are unable to do. And if they don't shine there, then the people will say, you're not doing anything in the house. So then they have to do all these duties. Same thing with the MPs also. The MPs, they would do that. I mean, because people wouldn't know what they are doing, they created this MP fund where every MP gets about 5 crores and they get to spend it. Some MPs, obviously, MP lad scheme. Some of them spend it well. Some of them in Bangalore, they spend it on a private golf course and all. So there was we are trying to, the MLAs have well-defined jobs. Many of these MLAs have good teams to do that. But, their duties, their time is being wasted by looking into all these petty things of the people. So, personally, I don't have a problem if an MLA backs candidates for ZP. But then once that person wins, you've got to let go of that person. And you've got to select, if an MLA has to select a ZP candidate who is competent enough, who is qualified, who understands the issues and how to resolve it. So all these things are not considered, which is why people are not interested in this entire process of ZP election. Added to this, which is another
because they don't understand what it is for, the purpose behind this ZP. Why does it exist? It's like, okay, this is another election that we have to vote for. Okay, go and vote. Or, maka kide padla, okay, I'll not go and vote for it. So it's inconsequential in the eyes of the people. And that is what is troublesome and bothersome, because they don't know the importance of a ZP. And it's like a chicken and egg situation, because the ZP does not have power. So that's why they end up feeling that way. So
so it's exactly, and then they come and they sit and they just have tea. And I've actually seen that when I was working for a newspaper. I've actually seen they just come, they sit. If somebody's talking, they just discuss. One group will discuss among themselves, like they just chat and all. They sit back on the chair. If a camera is pointed at those Zilla Panchayat meetings, I mean, people are going to be very angry to see what the elected representatives are doing. And but in any ways, that's one thing. But another, thing that has happened with this election is the election on party lines, which is the other issue why people are not coming out to vote. Earlier, it used to be like it was a independent candidate, so I could come out and vote without hurting anybody or without hurting any, officially any MLA. But now it is such that if you are a BJP supporter or if you're a BJP member, you have to go and vote for a BJP party, and or if you're a Congress person, you have to go for it's become an obligation, and that was never supposed to be for these kind of local elections. So
and actually I would like to add here, Avinash, that before you go ahead, is that actually under the provisions of the 73rd and 74th amendment for panchayat elections as well as municipal elections, it is not supposed to be on party lines at all. It is supposed to be independent of any party influence. So even giving a party ticket according to the rules is unconstitutional, but it is being I don't know how it has happened that it has become a practice, and the state election commissions are actually responsible for enforcing these rules, and that is how the independence and the true spirit of local self-governance would work more effectively if it were not to be on party lines, and actually individual independent candidates who are standing up for their local and respective areas.
Exactly. The BJP's one party, one country, one party philosophy is the reason why they have done this. And unfortunately, all the opposition parties remained silent for the last 5 years. I mean, in 2015, this thing had come in. Yes. Since 2015, there was no attempt made by the state government to implement an Anti Defection Law. So all the opposition parties, whoever, or even the independents, they contested it. But do they have any guarantee that their elected that their candidates will remain with the party? It's not possible, because we know what happened in the state government itself. I mean, 2/3 majority, moved to another party. So here you don't need 2/3. Here, even one person can just move. In fact, BJP can buy out all the other candidates and have 100% BJP Zilla Panchayat. Now they are not doing it because they know there's no value in it. But tomorrow, when there is money coming in the Zilla, and there will be, because there is already a court order asking for planning of, for district to plan. To create a plan for the district, whether Zilla Panchayat or the Zilla Development Committee has to prepare a plan for the district, and with that there will be funds also allocated to it.
Absolutely.
Now, in that scenario, you will see a lot of BJP. You will see this thing of the BJP, that they will take over all the other candidates, all the other Zilla Panchayat members, and there's no law. I would have expected the Congress or the Goa Forward or whichever NCP, I don't know, but to at least propose a private members bill in the last 5 years, asking for Anti Defection Law in the assembly for Zilla Panchayats. That has not happened. Orissa has done an Anti Defection Law, since they are also on party lines, but Goa has not done it. It is a tragedy, and it is it will be an insult to voters if at all we start seeing an exodus of winning candidates from one party join the BJP or any ruling party. So that's something.
No, absolutely.
I hope,
because I mean, despite there being an anti-defection law for the state legislature, you see MLAs defecting and going away. I mean, what do you say to that? But that's where I differ a little from you, Avinash. That you can make the law, anti-defection law or whatever, it exists for the state legislature, but do you see it working? Because where is the judiciary? Because to enforce such laws, the judiciary has to be prudent, right?
Exactly. I would, if at all the opposition had to take advice, one of the thing would be, of course, the Anti Defection Law. But I would reduce the term of the Zilla Panchayat to 2 years.
Hmm.
So at least in
Hmm.
that way, if somebody leaves and goes, and the term is so short that there's no point defecting. So even if you defect, then you'll be punished the very next year. Uh,
Hmm.
we need a shorter term. 5 years is just too long in the election cycle, in the president election cycle. I mean, now we see at least
Hmm.
they're switching one parties, but in due course of time, we might see candidates switch 2-3 parties within that 5 years, uh, because things happen in politics so fast, and especially in Zilla. I mean, so the there is a need to reduce the number of years that these candidates get to work in the panchayat, in the Zilla Panchayat.
Hmm.
Now, what else can be done to in the to keep to ensure that these people work? I mean, one thing is they have to have media coverage. Every Zilla meeting has to have media coverage, because since there's no media coverage, we don't know what they talk. We don't know when the meetings are there. It's barely
Hmm.
reported in any of the papers. Even if they
Yes.
report, it's like they don't tell all the entire agenda is not reported, and we need so that people can go and even attend that. Participants have a
Yes.
look at what is happening. So those things have to be in place, and I hope people from the ruling and from the opposition, the same voices, they start
Hmm.
demanding these things, so that Zilla Panchayat remains relevant and does not get degraded with every subsequent election.
Because finally,
So
Avinash, I would also like to add that, every election, be it ZP or at any level, it involves expenditure from the exchequer. And even the ZP election that has happened, it involves expenditure from the exchequer, which is finally people's money. So if elections are being conducted, we need to ensure that the full potential and the full purpose of it is being fulfilled. It's not again, it's not about appointing your future election agents as MLAs are doing. It is not about that. There has to be a serious move, and I would also, one of the things that I have been reading over time, and I also support, is for the local bodies like the ZP and the panchayats to actually have their finances disconnected from the state government and to have their own corpus, or some sort of independence of finances. Like we even see over the State Finance Commission is defunct and non-functioning. So things like that make a very big difference, because see, finally it all boils down to money in this world. So whoever holds the money holds the power. So we have to wait for the state government to then, do the devolution of powers. Uh, Having separate financial structure would help, perhaps.
yeah, see, the system is also designed like a private enterprise, where suppose a Tata Group, they have
Hmm,
different companies under them, so that
hmm,
the main group plans the direction for the entire enterprise, and then
hmm,
the budget, it's decided how much revenues are going to be collected from each of the companies, and how much expenditure or growth is in what direction the growth will take place in each of those companies. So accordingly, things are planned. Now, this
hmm,
two-tier structure in Goa, which is we don't have a taluka panchayats. That would have
hmm,
been nice for certain talukas like Salset and Mardes, but we don't have that.
hmm,
But
hmm,
as far as Zilla is concerned, the the state government is supposed to take the development plans of the Zilla and prepare a budget accordingly. So they
hmm,
can have their own projects, the state level projects, for
hmm,
example, High Court and whatever the state roads,
hmm,
highways. Sorry. So, but as far as the local projects are there, for example, a panchayat house or a
hmm,
school or the smaller projects,
hmm,
those proposals and the implementation should happen at the district level. It is up to the
hmm,
state to sanction the amount what the district
hmm,
wants. So if a district is planning for say 10,000 crores, I'm just giving an example, and the state only has
hmm,
8,000 crores, so then there has to be a coordination that look, we have only 8,000 crores to give you. So now you revise your proposal and tell us what you can do with 8,000 crores. So that kind of negotiation has to take place. Here, what is happening? The state
Absolutely.
decides, and then based on the MLA, based on the people in the ruling party, the works are carried out.
Yes.
So that is where we are having this. We are not able to devolve powers to the district. So it's a process, but people have to be aware of this process, because it's easy. Unless we understand this process, we will not come out to vote for people for our people who will work in this platform of the Zilla Panchayat on our behalf. So it's a thing that has to happen, and this whole thing on party lines is such a disaster, and I hope it gets reverted back to what it was. It was not a perfect system, but it was a better system than what we have now. Because now it's like if 10 people get elected from a particular BJP party, we know that only 1 or 2 people will speak. The rest will have to toe the line of the party, who are just will be silent spectators. We've seen what happened in municipal elections. We had this Goa Forwards panel. The whole Fatorda was under one panel, or 10 ward members. And you hardly hear anybody speaking. It was just like 1 or 2 people who would speak, and everyone would just nod their head and clap their hands and whatever, agree to whatever the head of that panel said. And that is exactly what is going to happen in the Zilla. So we hope that over the next 5 years things change and people should understand this. So
absolutely.
So would you like to say anything? Because I would like to move. I would like to talk about Nota also, because that was another issue what some people have raised.
Yeah, before we move on to the Nota thing, I would just like to tell our viewers that first of all, the Panchayati Raj Act and the Municipal Corporation Act, 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Constitution, they were made to bring the power to the people finally. I am very sad to note that the complete spirit, like by themselves, they are a beautiful piece of legislation, but they have not been in any way implemented in their entirety in anywhere in India. So that's something that we've not even seen 50% of the potential of what local self-governance can do and work wonders for state legislations as well as the central policies. So going forward, and I hope there will be more movement towards this, where people want to understand more about this. So over to you, Avinash, the Nota subject.
So in this election, one of the surprising aspects of it was that there was no Nota option, that is none of the above. There was no option for Nota in the ballot paper. So people who went for the election and they wanted to express the fact that there was no candidate up to their liking were disappointed. And there were some videos put out by many people regarding this issue. And I just dug a little deeper, and again the election commission is at absolute fault. In fact, it's borderline illegal what they have done. It's a contempt of court. But I'll get to that. The first thing is we must understand is why this Nota system came about recently. That is in 2013. That is when the EVM machines were implemented. There was no Nota button there. Earlier, when there was ballot paper, if you wanted to express that you don't have any candidate that you prefer, you want to show that that you support. When you don't like any of the candidates, what could you have done? You can either fold you take a ballot paper, fold it, and drop it in the box. Now, it would be considered invalid vote. The correct way of doing it would be you take the ballot paper, return it to the returning officer, and then he would make a remark. So that again would not keep secrecy. There would be no secrecy in that process. So in 2013, some people went to court, and in that in the court they discussed this matter quite thoroughly. In fact, the court had said that the voting by ballot paper was governed by Chapter 1 of Part 4 of the rules, and that is the election rules.
Hmm.
And Rule 39 talks about secrecy while voting by ballot, and Rule 41 talks about ballot papers. However, as said earlier, in the case of voting by ballot papers, the candidate always had an option of not putting the cross mark against the names of any candidates and thereby recording his disapproval of all the candidates in the fray. Even though such a ballot paper would be considered as invalid vote, the voter still had a right not to vote for anybody without compromising his or her right of secrecy. However, with the introduction of EVM, the said option for not voting for anyone without compromising the right of secrecy is not available to the voter, since the voting machine did not have a Nota button. So, like I said, if people wanted to express Nota in this election, they could have just not marked anything and let it go as an invalid vote. Of course, it is not a guarantee of basically your dissent. It could be interpreted as a mistake, and then the final verdict which came out was that of this judgment was, in the light of the discussion so and so, in view of our conclusions, we direct the Election Commission to provide necessary provisions in the ballot paper / EVMs, and another button called Nota may be provided in the EVM so that the voter who come to the polling booth and decide not to vote for any candidate in the fray are able to exercise their right to vote while maintaining their right to secrecy. In as much as the Election Commission itself is in favor of the provision of Nota and EVMs, we direct the Election Commission to implement the same in a phased manner or at the time and instance of assistance of the Government of India. So now here it's very clear that they had mentioned Nota / ballot papers. So the Supreme Court had directed the Election Commission to make sure that it was implemented on ballot papers as well. Now, why did the State Election Commission not put Nota in the ballot papers? And if anybody goes to court, would it become grounds for cancelling this whole election? Of course, no court would do that, and I don't think anybody would also go to court asking for it. But it is ground enough for the State Election Commission to resign because he's directly in contempt of court. And he has to be held responsible for denying the voter the right to express their dissent during this election, which has not happened. Which is so that's the thing about Nota. But when you were on the field, did anybody express the fact that there was no Nota over there?
I read reports. This one, Mr. Anil Lad, who's the owner of in Goa 24/7, there was a news piece on his channel about it because he went to vote and he saw that there was no option of the Nota. And I think Cecil Rodriguez also spoke about it. And I heard it from a lot of other people too, that there's no Nota option. So I think it is completely against the spirit of democracy and giving people the right to express their perspective through voting, no matter what it is, even if it is Nota. Or if they're supporting somebody else. So the provisions, the State Election Commission exists for this exactly, is to give people the avenue to express their opinions through voting. So the State Election Commissioner, I think this is a huge lapse in judgment, and this needs to be met with some sort of disciplinary action or something or the other that that becomes an example, because this sort of overview cannot be allowed from a public servant. Cannot.
So, another aspect of Nota, which is seldom discussed, is with respect to single candidate elections, like what happened in Sankwar.
Yes.
Now, Sankwar, there was, as far as what information I got, there was some confusion among the opposition of who to field, and because of that delay and for whatever reason, there was only one candidate backed by the sitting MLA, and that particular candidate got elected unopposed. Now the question is, would the people of Sankwar vote for that person if there was another candidate?
Yes.
Just because the parties or whoever was not prepared enough to contest the election. Because remember, this entire process of election, the time limit given to a individual whether to decide whether he wants to contest or not has been reduced from nearly more than a month to a few days. Even the campaigning, which used to take place over 2-3 weeks, has now been compressed to hardly 10 days, if they are lucky. And they don't know whether the ward is going to be reserved. They don't know whether, what rules are going to be implemented, what symbol they're going to get. So because of all these factors, a lot of people don't end up contesting the election, even if they have interest. And in the case of Sankwar, there needs to be a debate of whether we should have a nota when there's only one candidate, and see whether people will come out to vote for nota or that particular candidate. Now there was a ruling in Andhra regarding this, and there the High Court turned such a appeal down. So what was said is, as per the rules, in the case of ballot paper used to conduct polls at the polling station with ballot boxes or EVMs, provision is required to be made for none of the above in cases where candidates have declared uncontested. I'll just share my screen so it's easier to. In cases where candidates have been declared uncontested, nota does not apply. Looking to the legislative intent, because option may be permitted to be exercised on contest of election. So what you're saying is, if there is a contest between two people or two or more people, then someone might prefer nota. During deliberations, while discussing on the nomenclature of nota, it is clearly reflects that this contingency applies in case where there is a contest of election, and as per the language set in Rule 35A of the rules, it reflects that when there is an election through ballot box or EVMs, only then the said option can be exercised. Looking at the legislative intent and amendment of the word nota, the relief of prayer cannot be granted. Now this judge has gone on a very technical ground and not in the spirit of the nota itself. So he's gone on a very technical ground, saying that because it is not there in the rules, because it has to be a contest, and only then the third nota, means the third candidate called nota, can be put there, which is quite unfair. It could always be constituency is reserved for, like in Panchayat election in Damapur Silli, there was only one SC candidate, and one ward was reserved for SC and one ward was reserved for SC women, and she contested in both these areas, and she won in both because there was no competition. There was no other person who would contest. So in that case, if there was a nota, maybe people would have said, no, I don't like her. So you can de-reserve that, since there are no candidates to suit that reservation, or for whatever reason, maybe everybody waits for the political party to put a candidate, but then at last minute, when the other political parties don't put a candidate, then maybe independents would have thought, okay, I would have contested. So in that case, you need a nota if there is this, because a single unopposed candidate is an insult to democracy, and especially when a candidate is propped up by the sitting MLA. So then there's no democracy. It's like somebody is nominating a person, and you can always have a possibility that the government in power or the MLA in power is threatening everybody else not to contest. We already know people get kidnapped. They get kidnapped even after elections. Candidates get kidnapped and put in hotels. So it's easy to kidnap somebody even before the election, then have them, withdraw from the fray. In which case, people need the right to say, okay, I don't want this particular, even if she's the only one or he's the only one who's there, I still don't want that person.
Absolutely.
And
so I disagree with this High Court ruling. I was also going through this because you shared it with me earlier, Avinash. And in the spirit of democracy, see, I may not be a judge, I may not be a lawyer, but if we are simply just talking about the spirit of democracy, it is not okay for a person to come elected unopposed in any constituency. And there has to be a check and balance on that. And that can be provided through a nota. I mean, if it were a perfect world, I would say that, we could have one or two people in every constituency who would just stand as independent in every election, no matter what, just to give an option to the people, but Nota is there, so it has to be used to give
Exactly.
people the opportunity to express their perspective and their opinion on who should it be. Because see, if Nota was there, like if I want to give a practical example in the case of Sankhwal, now the candidate has been put by Movin Gudino, who is the sitting MLA of that area. Now, what I have heard from the ground, from the people there, that they were actually people who were going to stand as candidates from that constituency, but they were threatened, they were given money, they were made to keep quiet, and so therefore she came unopposed, the candidate from there. Now, if there had been a Nota option against this lady, now people who are not happy with this choice, with the local sitting MLA putting up this candidate and the threatening that's going on, people could have actually gone and expressed their dissent against such an action through pressing on the Nota, which would have been an easy avenue for people to express what their view of the election is. But again, because the Nota was not available, they could not do it. So I would say, I'm not a law expert, but I would say it is against the spirit of democracy.
No, we don't need to be a law expert because it's our duty, it's our responsibility, and it is our right. So to vote and to have a process that is accessible, it is easy. We should have the liberty to decide. When one person contests, we do not have a liberty, and liberty is one of the fundamental values enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution. So by having only one option, it is a denial of our liberty, and that everyone
Absolutely.
involved, all the stakeholders involved, have to take this very seriously. If the BJP or if any ruling party thinks that just because they are in control, there is something called karma, and it will hit back. There will always be another political party to take over. There will be factions within the political party who will suppress or who will defeat all these people who are there right now. And if all these systems are not fixed, the same systems will come after them, and then they will regret it later on. But this is about Nota. So another thing that people were upset about, and the low voter turnout, especially amongst senior citizens, so was COVID. And you know what the State Election Commission had done? They had, in their great wisdom, I don't know who they consulted, in their great wisdom, they decided to keep 1 hour reserved for COVID patients. I mean, that is absurd. You can keep one ballot box separate for them, but to keep 1 hour or something reserved where they would have to come in suits, they scared a lot of people who had just come from work, who wanted to come to vote. The State Election Commission scared people away, because if they thought that if they go at that particular time, they'll get infected. And that is very, very unfortunate. Did the Election Commission themselves maintain the SOPs? No. The stamp which was used, they should have kept 5 or 10 stamps, so that every time one person used, that would go for sanitation, and it would go in a round robin fashion. So one would be used, it would go for cleaning. In the meantime, the next voter would take the next one and do it. But that was not done. And same thing with the pen. So everyone was supposed to sign using the same pen. And it was hot. You can use a sanitizer, but still, there's always a chance that the virus could get onto the pen. And there was no one sanitizing those basic items.
Absolutely.
So it was like a weird understanding of the SOPs and implementation of the SOPs on part of the State Election Commission. And on top of that, because of all this, they kept people away. They disenfranchised people in a way by keeping them away. Was it an intention? Was it their intention to do it? God knows. But such things, if they happen, and with such an environment, it no doubt creates a doubt among people that is this done purposely to keep us away from voting? So there again, somewhere they have to take. Have you come across cases? Because here we did. Have you come across cases in the north where there were people who wouldn't want to come out because of the COVID issue?
Yes, a lot of these examples were, I came across them yesterday, and it is sad to note. And actually, fundamentally, I would say the state government had, should have waited for some more time before scheduling the ZP election. because we are still going through the pandemic, and it was not a burning need. It could have been postponed by about 2 months, and that is also largely affected the voter turnout yesterday for the ZP election. And I really don't understand hurry was, but it could have been avoided.
In the US, when they had their presidential election, they had two other systems of voting. One was the postal ballots,
Mail-in
and the other was mail-in voting, and the other was in-person voting, but it was advanced voting, as they would call it. So in mailing, we already have a mail-in ballot system. We call it postal ballot, which is reserved normally for government workers who are on election
government
duty
officials.
that day, or army people, so that they would cast their vote. Now that system could have been extended to COVID patients, but instead they made COVID patients come to the ballot box and cast their vote. And I think, as per the statistics, 15 from North Goa and 16 from South Goa COVID patients, that is known COVID patients or carriers of the virus, cast their vote. Now those 14 and 15 people could have easily been given postal ballots and told, you'll send your post by mail. Would there be a fraud? I mean, with government workers do the same thing. So why not common people?
So actually, Avinash, I would like to add here, I did not express this publicly before, but looking at how the American election was conducted in the pandemic situation, I mean, that was a completely proactive method of dealing with an important event like an election during a pandemic. And I was just waiting to see if our Indian government would take cue from it, especially Goa government, because this is a no-brainer. Like literally, if mail-in voting would have been enabled, postal ballots would have been enabled for the general public, just because of the pandemic situation, I assure you that the voter turnout would have been much larger than what we have seen yesterday. And that's exactly where, like I feel that the people who are sitting in government offices, they've studied for and worked hard to get into these jobs. So I don't understand whether their brains don't work in this scenario, or they're actually curtailed by the politicians and their intelligence is not allowed to shine through. Because this is absolutely a practical,
No, exactly. It's a practical solution, but the reason why these things are not done, because everybody wants to maintain the status quo. So as long as status quo is maintained, the people in power have the advantage. They could have done it for senior citizens. They could have given a postal ballot for senior citizens. I mean, we Goans do participate in postal ballot, but not Indian citizen Goans. The Goans with Portuguese passport holder who may have never stepped in Portugal ever in their life. They are passport holders of Portugal, but they are citizens of London. But these people religiously get, or rather the Portugal government religiously sends them a postal ballot to their house in Goa to make sure that they can exercise their franchise. In India, we have a mentality that you are a criminal first and you have to prove yourself innocent. So in case of voting, also the same. We will not give you a postal ballot because we know that you will do some crime or the other with it. You'll abuse it, and therefore your punishment is you come to the polling booth, risk your life, risk your family's life, and come there and vote.
But absolutely, and I would also like to add a point here, Avinash, before we move ahead. I especially also read a report. People with disabilities had a really tough time yesterday while voting. So this is also, along with senior citizens, this could have been extended to people with disabilities, enable mail-in and postal ballots, and allow them to vote from home. I mean, why does a person with a disability need to have to go through such a grueling routine to get to a polling station, that place not being accessible for them? And then I saw, and it was really saddening. Like, the reporters there, the people there had to like help the person up the stairs. I mean, these are the sensitivities that the government needs to keep in consideration, and that is why the government is there, right? It has to plan for all contingencies. So yeah,
So
as we are seeing
this
on the
photo that
screen.
you see, it's basically one of the sites in I think this was Kurtori, if I'm not mistaken, and they expect people
Hmm.
with disabilities to climb the staircase and go up and vote, and it's absolutely wrong. It is an again here it's heartless that you are not considering the weakest or rather the most you know people with issues from the society, the most people with this kind of challenges. Again,
Absolutely.
election commission
See,
is living in a whole different
disenfranchising
world.
people.
They're living in a whole different world, and they're not looking into the ground realities of the issues people are facing. And this is just one example. It happened in many places across the state, and in any country this would have been
Yes,
ground for even sacking of those officers and even having a re-election, because every vote counts for in other countries but not in
absolutely.
ours. So that's
That's
unfortunate,
that's
and
the
it's a good
thing,
point.
Avinash. I feel that we don't have respect for every voter in our country, and that is something which I'm looking forward to working with people like you and so many others who are on the ground as political activists as well, to actually ensure that every single voter, no matter who they are, from which background they are, whether they have a disability or not, they need to be respected as being citizens and having the right to vote and having the right to exercise that
Yep.
franchisee. Uh, Because I mean, it's like you're just one in so many numbers. Just come and vote. If you can't vote, then okay, to hell with it. Too bad, kind of a thing.
And it's the system needs to take everybody along. That is one of the most fundamental tenets of it. A lot of these buildings that are built today, again, we had discussed this in one of the previous episodes, that
Hmm.
because there are no people living with disabilities in those committees, uh, thought is not given to that. And here as well, you know, they are not thinking, because we don't have people with disabilities in the State Election Commission or in other departments, and even in the Zilla Panchayat election itself, which is why nobody is thinking about this.
Yes.
I think in the Zilla Panchayat, if I'm not mistaken, government can nominate some people. Of course, they don't have voting rights, but at least they can
Hmm.
participate. So this is one
Hmm.
of the areas where you
Absolutely.
require somebody with disabilities to be there and let them explain. Because if a system, it's not only for them. If a system is made
Hmm.
disabled friendly, it is friendly to the rest of us also. It's not just for them. If it is
Yes.
designed around all these, like, for example, a lift. Having a lift is
Hmm.
beneficial for everyone. But if we don't consider the disabled, then people are never going to consider a lift as a compulsion, as much as light
Yes.
in any building. So this
Yes.
is something that even the you should start with the election commission, and there's one of the failures of the system. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what
So
else is
coming
on
to the
your?
other ZP, so I think pretty much we've covered the aspects
Yeah.
which were some of the issues that have come up yesterday. Moving on to a burning issue right now for Goa, as we were discussing some time ago, Avinash, is the beef and meat
Oh,
issue. So we've seen
yeah.
that today. Even I went to the market this morning and I saw the shop where the beef is sold, and there's absolutely nothing there. And so over to you, Avinash, if you also want to add on.
Absolutely. I mean, the uh, even I had gone to the HEPDA market, and all the beef shops were closed. Number one, this is literally uh, a loss to the economy. I mean, it's a small percentage, but in the HGPD market, it's a loss to people. It's a loss of jobs, and and this is just the start of the chain of this business. Of course, it at the other end is the farmer who has to sell his
Hmm.
cattle in order to have that money, lump sum money, to invest back in new cattle and new in whatever else that he wants to. Karnataka government has passed an act. That act is not yet come in force. The act states that all sorts of cattle, including buffaloes, bulls, the slaughter of all these animals is banned. Transportation also will be, I think, banned for purpose of slaughter. So you can't even get animals to Goa and slaughter them. And although the bill has not got the consent of the governor, before that itself, the traders have stopped obviously sending beef to Goa because they have to buy the cattle and keep it. So why buy and stock it up when they know that they will not be able to transport it later or slaughter it later.
Yes.
So they have obviously stopped their business, and because of that, Goa is hampered just before Christmas. Now,
absolutely.
What this should have become one of the election issues, which unfortunately none of the candidates used it. I'm not saying they should have made it political, but this is one of the issues of the people. Give people a choice if at all we should eat beef or not. Let it be an election issue. Did the BJP have the guts to say that this India manifesto that they want to ban beef? They didn't have the guts to say that, but they are using this soft Hindutva, soft RSS strategies in order to implement that. And again, here to an extent, our opposition is because our opposition is limited, is not vocal enough. Maybe because they fear that if they'll be perceived as pro minority or pro Muslim. I've been having this discussion with others, and they said since they have allowed slaughter of pigs, it does not look like it's anti-Catholic entirely. It's more like an anti-Muslim agenda. And because of this, maybe the opposition parties are not willing to speak up out of fear that they will isolate their Hindu base. And then the BJP will use it saying that, look, all these people are supporting Muslims and they're supporting slaughter of the mother or whatever. But it comes back to the fundamental question.
But then...
Yeah.
But then, this is a misnomer. I would say, Avinash, that, it would end up alienating the Hindu electorate, so to say. Because the Bahujan Samaj in the Hindus, I would like to set the record straight for our viewers as well. Especially the SC and ST community of the Hindus, they consume beef. They are also consumers of beef because it is the cheapest form of protein available. So it is the issue of the beef is not a pan-Hindu issue at all. If you go and ask the Hindus categorically, I will still tell you that majority of them will say that they don't have a problem with it. It is just a very hyped up propaganda, and it is in a way very insidiously only to fortify the beef export, because anything that you end up black marketing or prohibiting, the black market comes into play, and then you can then control it. Right now it was a free market, people were engaged in it, and it was mainly the livelihoods of the Muslims. So they're actually killing two birds with one stone with this thing. It's pretty ingenious on their part and insidious too, but this is something which goes against democracy and the liberties that we have, that nobody can dictate to us what we should eat, what we should wear. That comes under personal liberty, and that's something that the government cannot mess with.
Whom you should marry, and there are a lot of decision the government wants to do now for people. But yeah, like you said, the black market of beef is a huge market. In fact, during COVID, when this beef input had stopped, there was illegal slaughter of cows happening across Goa, and it was, of course, people who said it is better quality meat because it's a local cattle, and at least what they're eating and what they're fed compared to cattle that is brought from other states. We don't know what kind of hygiene do the cattle live in. But so one of the things is the black market is going to increase, and the second issue is, where will all this cattle go? As yesterday we were discussing, there are 40,000 cattle registered in the census for last year. 40,000 cattle in Goa. It takes about 2,500 rupees. It costs about 2,500 rupees for maintaining a cattle every month, and this statistics is of the Gaushala in Goa, in South Goa. Now, if you're going to keep 40,000 cattle, the amount comes around, what was that, 150 crores or more? It comes in crores,
132 crores.
132 crores. It comes in that range. And again, 132 crores, assuming that it is the same Gaushala, but if you start buying land or allocating land for more Gaushalas, having to pay that rent of that land, have power, electricity, so that the cost will escalate. This 2,500 is only on the feed.
Absolutely.
So plus you have your staff, you have to use a lot of water, and where will all these cattle go? So what will happen is that farmers will move away from dairy because they will find it less lucrative to do this business. And then maybe that's the intention, because we know that Sumul was brought to India by our own CM, both the former and present one, and there's the whole saga of how the Goa dairy was being sabotaged, and now Sumul is being promoted a lot, which is a offshoot of Amul. Maybe that's the reason, so that all the local dairies, small dairies, closed down. So again, a big corporate dairy will operate and will supply milk to the rest of the state. Now, come to think of it, it looks like that is the reason. And eventually, we are going to have this cattle crisis. And we are going to have a lot of cattle on the street. We are going to have a lot of cattle dying on the street because Gaushalas do not take them unless they are like severely injured. And that's when I hope, I hope it's not too late to resolve the problem. Because once the cycle of the food cycle and the economic cycle of this cattle is broken, it's very hard to repair it and to get it back on track.
Absolutely. And just to make it clear, as we were discussing also earlier, Avinash, that there is with a cow, with a buffalo, with cattle, there is a life cycle that is involved. So even if we have to just talk about, you can't talk about dairy and not have cattle slaughter without it, because in order to have dairy, a cow needs to be impregnated, and I heard you talking about that earlier. And once she becomes pregnant, she delivers a baby. Only the females are kept to be made into milching cows at a later stage, and once they mature. But what happens to the males? They are mostly grown and then sold for slaughter, for meat. So there is a process, there is a recycling, and it's already been set into practice about how it happens and who's taking care of which industry and things like that. So the moment you disrupt it, so you want the milk and you don't want the meat, I mean, it does not make sense. Because otherwise we will have to start digging mass burial grounds for cows to be buried there. Otherwise, the only other alternative is to black market and export. So again, you see, the purpose of doing this is to actually direct all the cows, because somewhere the waste has to go somewhere, right? Like if you make a dish, if you're cooking in the kitchen, if you peel a potato, the potato peel has to go somewhere, right? It has to be disposed of.
So it's the same in this case, and this policy itself is so badly thought of. They are doing it on religious grounds, and if you get into the religious debate, you end up being trapped there, because then again they use that against you. I mean, as on a scientific from a scientific perspective, I still don't understand how you can consider this modern cow as religious, as holy. It's like every species of dog we have today is all man-made. It's all through selective evolution and selective engineering, breeding. So that is the original was probably wolves, who first decided to hang out with the prehistoric humans because there was meat and bones lying around. So then they became friendly. It was an asymptomatic. It was a relationship, and they evolved to suit the environment wherever the human went. The same has been with cows. So we cannot assume that just because maybe in the prehistoric time there was some mythical, something to do with mythology, and cows may have some link no proof to prove yes, no proof to prove no. Let's keep it at that. But can we say that today's cows are the same as that? Because half of the cows
No.
they already have genetics from other countries, which are, there's so many crossbreeding done, and there is, these cows are anything but that. Yes, we can look at it from a live animal perspective. That's different. But when you look at it from a religious perspective, you wonder that whether we have, as a country, have evolved any scientific temper at all. And if at all we have evolved, if at all we want to love, even I always, when there's a cow around, and I see a cow, I always go and pet it. I like the grace of the cow and the gentleness that it has.
They're very docile.
They're so docile, so peaceful. Not all of them, but yeah, at least most of them. But the thing is that you should have love for that. You can't mix it up with religion and then say and use religion as a reason to stop it. Let's save life for life's sake, not because it is linked to some religion. And that is where they're going to create more problems. And I don't know, the consequences are going to be devastating for us, especially for milk production.
Actually, I would like to set the record straight because I come from the Hindu community. Meat consumption, and especially beef and buffalo meat, has been a part of our tradition for a very long time. It's just that the prevalent narrative of the day, which is the Hindutva part of what they call themselves as Sanatan Dharma, it's a very recent development in the long history of Hinduism. And Hinduism itself consists of so many even polar opposite ideologies within one ambit of a religion, if you can call it. So somebody can be an agnostic and an atheist as a Hindu, and somebody can be a polytheist and a monotheist as well. So this narrative that is being set is a very, very narrow one and a very recent one. So if any Hindu has done their bit of research and has a bit of knowledge about what our history has been, the religious debate also is non-existent in terms of meat eating, especially beef and buffalo meat.
And this is all linked to in any fascist regime or any fascist organization, they always play this protein politics where the masses are systematically weakened. If you read the 1984 book by George Orwell, it was a book based on the Russian Revolution and how the Bolsheviks, when they took over, they imposed an authoritarian government on the people of Russia. So he made a book in somewhere in the 1950s or 40s, early 40s on that, and there he talks about how we have this camps, canteens where people would be given gruel and some basic food, not much protein, and the entire population was very frail except for the military and the police, so that they could impose their force on people. They don't like physically strong people, especially the lower caste or the lower classes. They don't want them to be physically strong. That is why eggs are removed from schools, from the midday meal schemes. Eggs is a very dense protein item. And this today is be beef, tomorrow will be chicken, fish, and this will continue. Because it's only because of this. Because if you see the farmers' protest even happening in Delhi, a lot of criticism on social media and even the right-wing media is that look at them, they are roaming with jeans, they are big, they are strong. That kind of
eating biryani.
Insinuation. Yeah, the insinuation is that they're big and strong. How are they poor? Means the government is expecting, and the right wing is expecting them to be stereotypical, weak, frail, worn out clothes, coming and not having the money even to come to Delhi, and that is the stereotype they want to impose on the rest of the country. So they don't want people to consume any form of protein. They have deregulated dal and other lentils from the Commodities Act, precisely because they want to give the control to corporates, in which case it will be limited only to the middle class and upper middle class and the rich. Excuse me.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas the poor people do not get to eat it.
If you allow me quickly, Avinash, I would like to read to our viewers. There's a very good write-up by Gautam Benegal.
Okay.
Just a second. Okay, so he's written this lot expressing outrage over farmers eating pizza must have been very confused when farmers dropped using bullocks and yokes and hopped onto tractors, or started using bricks and tiles for their homes and not mud and thatched roofs, or maybe started using spectacles, or wearing shirts and pants, or started signing their names and not being Angutha Chhap, or moved from Laban Sabun to Lifebuoy and then maybe Lux. Then came mobiles instead of hailing each other across fields and using postcards written by professional writers. That must have been a doozy. Damn, you were a good man, Gunga then, but how you have changed. But ask them to identify a farmer in England and they'll do it right away. Farmer John with his clay.
Ishvi, are there? Okay, so just to sum, Farmer John, you were
So
at Farmer
it
John.
talks about so it talks about. I'll just finish. The end was no wonder in this kind of entitled colonial climate, the RSS, which worshipped the Brits like gods, found such willing inroads in upper middle class, high caste society. So this was a write-up by Gautam Benegal, and it is so relevant to the situation.
Absolutely. So, and this is exactly what they want, because the RSS and the BJP and a certain section of even the upper caste, they do not want to physically and mentally empower the backward classes. They do not want to empower the farmers. They are only looked upon as low skilled, daily wage, low cost labor, and this is why, and that's why they are doing this. So yeah, everything is connected, right from the ZP elections to the state elections, to this beef politics. Everything is connected. And you have any other things to talk about for today, or?
I would only like to conclude by giving reference to that one issue that I raised by a video that I had done. That as a woman, when I heard the Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka saying that the lives of cow vigilantes or cow rakshaks should be protected, and actually they have in their bills given very hefty fines, like from 50,000 rupees up to 5 lakhs. For anybody who has cattle, or about slaughter and imprisonment terms and things like that. And there would be actual state machinery which would be going into this. I, as a woman, just lost my temper, because the amount of the desire and the kind what do I say, the motivation with which this is being done for cows, it makes me think that I am not important at all as a woman in this country, and actually a cow and a buffalo is more important than me, because it is gaining attention from the government, who wants to protect cows and buffaloes. So I mean I don't know what you have to say about this, Avinash, but again, like talking right now about it has kind of triggered me.
No, there are two things. I will just comment on the news in which he spoke that. So this, I think it was on NDTV or NDTV fact check. Yeah. So there the journalist asked him this question, and that fellow said that the minister said that there are cow vigilantes who are being murdered, and then the journalist said, no, it's like the other guys, the cow owners are being murdered, who are transporting the cows,
lynched,
and these are the statistics, lynched, and these are the statistics. Now, in this entire conversation, that the media did not question this minister, exactly how many people from this vigilantes have died or have injured. and how many cases are filed, and how many people have got convicted. Not a single question on that. The thing is that this propaganda, now see, you're upset listening to that minister. Why was the minister even given a platform to spread his lies? There are people who I'd say there might be some truth in that. This is the problem with the media, that they give these people, the right wing people, a platform to lie and sow that doubt, which gets reinforced with every subsequent statement made. So some other right wing guy will hear this and say, yeah, some people had died in some other news, and then a person C is going to repeat what person B said, and then person A is going to say, yeah, because I heard person C say it. So it's like a circular ecosystem,
Chinese whisper.
circular, Chinese whisper, and they call it echo chamber, where the same thing is repeated, and then you don't know who's the real source. Somewhere it should be cut off, and at least with the center or left media, that is like channels like NDTV, they should stop giving platforms to these people and just tell people the truth as it is, that there are no cow vigilantes who had died. Most of the time they are heavily armed, so there's no chance of one or two truck owners going and attacking these cow vigilantes. If at all some vigilantes died, it's because of infighting among them, because these vigilantes are running a business of collecting hafta, collecting extorting money from all these transporters of cattle, and each one has their territory. So when they cross territories, these vigilantes fight amongst each other, and somebody dies, and then they blame the people who are transporting the cattle. That's what is happening. But instead of that, these people are talking. The media is giving these guys a platform to spread lies, and by not correcting it, the same media is losing audience, because then we perceive them as, NDTV, except for Ravish Kumar, who doesn't entertain all these right wing guys on his. All the other anchors, they do that. They give them a platform to lie, and then they don't fact check them. So that's
absolutely. This is one
that
aspect
person should
of
have
it.
never given a chance. He should have never given a chance to speak. Even if they had interviewed him, they should have not shown that interview. By showing an interview, they have created a disservice. They have unnecessarily emotionally triggered people, when it should have been just factually said that there are no vigilantes that had died, and this law is absolutely not required and was unwarranted, and it's only done to subjugate a certain section of society.
Absolutely. But again, Avinash, no matter what NDTV did, but I, as an individual, I would say it is, and as a woman, it is extremely disgusting for me to hear these things, because, like police reforms are pending. There's so much in terms of women's safety. And as citizens of this country, we are not given, because we have these rights fundamentally, being citizens of this country, and we are not being assured those rights. And such matters are taking precedence and importance.
Don't you think that this bite was given for TRP? Because it makes good TRP, it gets shared as viral news that some minister is saying this, and then everybody gets angered, and by the time your anger subsides, then another topic comes to discuss. So there is,
yes, this could be a TRP cycle. I mean, and I am not. I will say I'm not a saint. I also fall for these things. But these are cyclical things that this is the ups and downs of TRP, which you have something very controversial coming, and then people reacting to it, and there is that fundamental preference in human beings to go in for something which mildly angers them or frustrates them. It's like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah. So that's what they're trying to do, and keep us busy with these kind of controversies and this kind of emotionally charged up news, when the reality is that they should just repeat the same question to all these leaders: why aren't your women's laws implemented the same way you all are going up against illegal cow slaughter? That's just one question you keep asking again and again. Let them give different answers every time. Let them divert the question every time, but keep hammering that one question till they say, till they give an answer. Either they cannot do it or that they will do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Police reforms 2006 mandated by Supreme Court. 14 years have passed, nothing happened. So it's like, what are they doing with their mandate? What are they doing even after usurping power in various states, breaking Anti Defection Law, bypassing it in a lot of the cases? what are you doing with that sort of priorities? I mean, an animal is more important to you, and not your women. That's 50% of your population in the country. So it's pretty disgusting when you see that.
So hopefully tomorrow we might see a new dawn if good candidates like Royla that we had interviewed, if at all people like her get elected, there will be at least
Yes.
some possibility of change. If not, the fight and the struggle and the campaign should go on. Uh, Goa
Yes.
right now we are focused on a lot of these coal-related projects, but
Hmm.
nonetheless, we also should continuously ask for reforms in the State Election Commission, like Anti Defection laws, like
Hmm.
Nota. In that, we have to keep asking. We hope the audience will question, will write to to these officials to ask them why weren't these things implemented? Why wasn't Nota implemented? So that maybe in the
Absolutely.
next municipal election, which is next month, we will have a nota on the ballot paper, and people will get a chance to really exercise their franchise, their right to vote, and to express their dissent, if at all, if they don't get a good candidate in this election.
Absolutely. So, to all our viewers, we conclude our today's the week on Rewind, and this was me, Devsurbi Yadwanshi, and our co-host Avinash Tavares, who's become a very important collaborator. And I thank you, Avinash, for
You're
doing this
welcome.
with us every week. So as issues come along, we will keep talking about them. We intend to also increase the frequency as time goes along, but we will see it according to the response that we get. But do not forget before you go, and I have to remind you, please comment, share, like, and subscribe our channel on Facebook as well as YouTube, and keep watching more and more. Share it with people that you know, and if you have any views that you want to express, you can also come on to our show, and we will give you that space to even talk about something that you want to express. So this is all about people's journalism, so please do write in. We would love to hear from you. So this was Goa Stories, the week on Rewind, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.